some powerful women. I'm Leslie with Women Rocking Hollywood. And thank you all for coming, because every time we have a really long line, we get a bigger room. So this is a slightly bigger room this year, next year, and we're going to Hall H. It's happening. I'd like to introduce our panel. This is Alison Emilio. She's the director of Reframe, which is a partnership project created by Sundance and Women in Film. Reframe is a growing coalition of industry leaders and 60-plus ambassadors, producers, directors, agents, studio executives that are tasked and challenged to bring about measurable progress in achieving gender equality and advancing female filmmakers in film, TV, and media. Alison. Gloria Calderon Kellett, who has been in the news a lot lately, hasn't she? She's the executive producer, co-showrunner, director, and actor on the critically acclaimed sitcom One Day at a Time. Coming to Pop TV in 2020, and thank you. Okay, she wrote and executive produced the comedy pilot History of Them for CBS, was a writer-producer on iZombie, Devious Maids, Mixology, Rules of Engagement, How I Met Your Mother, and she's written pretty much everywhere. and now she's got another whole season of awesomeness coming up soon. Yeah. Catherine Hardwicke, many of you know. Maybe you didn't know this, but she started out as a production designer, which when you think about her films, it does kind of make sense. She's famous for directing critically acclaimed movies 13 and Lords of Dogtown. Then she directed Twilight. And she directed Miss You Already and Miss Bala this year. And now she's working on a new series for Quibi, which is short for Quick Bites. And it's called Don't Look Deeper, which stars Don Cheadle and Emily Mortimer. Cheryl Dunye is the producing director this season on Queen Sugar, having previously directed episodes of the series in season 2 as a first-time television director. She is considered the most influential African-American filmmaker to emerge from the new queer cinema wave of the mid-90s, and is currently preparing a cool project you guys are going to be so into called The Gilda Stories. See, they all have their fan base in this room, which is awesome. Fitz has been a showrunner for ABC Family's Knock First, which was she was the first to pitch, produce, and develop the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy back in 2003, before it was a cool thing. She is the director of the documentary Jules Catch One, which took 6 years to make and was a passion project, and is now on Netflix as a result of the distribution by Array. She's an award-winning content creator and is directing episode 8 of this season's Queen Sugar. So you haven't seen it yet, but you will. Liesl Tommy is the director of the 6-time Tony-nominated Broadway play Eclipsed. She directed your favorite episode of The Walking Dead this season, Choke Point, and she's about to start production on the Aretha Franklin biopic Respect with Jennifer Hudson. Yep. Jen McGowan has most recently directed the breakout indie escape thriller Rust Creek, which if you haven't seen it, you need to because it's awesome. In partnership with Level Forward, she's the creator of Glass Elevator, an international skill-sharing, networking, and job resource for professional women in film and television. She was named one of Vulture's Women Directors Hollywood Should Be Hiring, and she has an exciting new project called Angelica that she's going to be talking about that's in the works. Woo! And Angela Robinson has written for How to Get Away with Murder, The L Word, Hung, True Blood, and many others. And she released the critically acclaimed Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman, also something you should all see. She has a first-look deal with Paramount, and she just announced that she'll be writing and directing the screen version of the New York Times bestseller, Lock Every Door. Woo! And we start the clock. Reframe is a partnership between Women in Film and Sundance Institute. Can you talk about what Reframe does and how do Reframe ambassadors help with your initiatives?
Hi. First of all, I want to thank Leslie so much for, this is her 4th year rocking this panel, so I think we need to give it up for her. And I'm so thrilled to be on this panel with these amazing women who are advocates, change makers, and amazing creators in their own right. So glad to be here. As Leslie said, Reframe is a partnership between Sundance Institute and Women in Film. It really launched about 3 years ago, but it was based on or grew out of this idea that over time, as long as we have been measuring, in the top 100 box office grossing films, only 4% of those films have been directed by women. And that's just got to stop. And so this was a statistic that they wanted to hack at and figure out and unpack why is that happening. And so they commissioned a 3-phase study with USC Annenberg, Dr. Stacy Smith, and the Inclusion Initiative, which is an amazing thing. You could look it up, Google it. But through that research, we learned why this happened. Why is it happening that women are having trouble breaking through to the next level? I could talk all day about that, but let's suffice it to say that bias is a major player in that. Access and opportunity to networks, closed networks. When money comes in, women fall out. There's a fear that women don't know how to spend the money, what to do with it, how to really operate at a higher level, and so on. So out of all of this foundational research, we convened a systemic change project, and through that developed almost like an army of ambassadors, influencers, and advocates that had come together to help co-create programs, practical solutions that we can take into studios, into networks, into streamers, and try and influence change from the inside out in a systemic way. These ambassadors, I will get to that in 1 minute, but they include Paul Feig and Hardwicke, who's on the panel, and many others, Charles King, et cetera. So with the ambassadors, we created 3 programs. One is conscious inclusion training, which evolved out of implicit bias or unconscious bias training to almost bring a behavioral modification approach and practical tools and strategies that studios and networks and streamers can use. We developed with that a 14-point production roadmap that companies and on-set productions are using right now. We developed a pipeline program to help accelerate women that are experienced, that have been working for years but have not yet achieved that higher goal of directing their first superhero movie or a studio feature that breaks through to that top 100, et cetera. And that's called Reframe Rise. We just launched it June 12th with 8 amazing women in the first cohort, the inaugural class. They include Liesl Culpepper, who you might have heard about. She's the first woman and first African-American woman for sure to direct Star Trek after 53 years. So she's just done that. And Desiree Akavan, who directed some amazing stuff, including The Miseducation of Cameron Post, you might have heard of her, and others. So keep a lookout for the Reframe Rise, and our goal is to advance women, because we know when women lead, they hire more women and more underrepresented groups. And finally, we do research and advocacy and so on. And then we also have something called the Reframe Stamp for gender balance.
Which is where you guys come in.
Yeah, Reframe Stamp for gender balanced production. You can find it on our media sponsor, IMDb Pro. Go there. You can see what content has been stamped. How you earn the stamp, should I jump into this?
Yeah.
Is there's criteria that was carefully developed by our Reframe ambassadors and professionals actually working in the field, including Hardwicke, who also helped us design that beautiful orange of the stamp and the stamp design itself. Thank you, Catherine. And the criteria include, if the director counts for 1 point, the writer is a point, the lead is a point, the co-lead is a point, 50% of of department heads count for a point, and so on. And then the criteria is weighted. If woman of color, you get an extra point. So we are driving not just white women in the system, we're driving all women in the system. So that's the Reframe Stamp.
And you can go and pick out which movies and shows have a reframe stamp and as fans support
Exactly.
inclusive films and television.
And just like with Rotten Tomatoes or any of the other, LEED certification or your organic food, we are finding that especially Gen Z and millennials, research shows us that they are driven by values and by, content that is serving the need of audiences everywhere and showing up the way they want to show up. So please support the reframe stamp. Go on, tweet about it. Share go and see the films and TV shows, watch them that get it. So
And One Day at a Time has a reframe stamp.
Oh wait, okay.
Oh wait,
so,
we're not done yet. So yeah,
okay.
I was just gonna say it has a reframe stamp, and that's an example of vocal fans making a huge difference. You guys have a lot of power.
Exactly.
And speaking of ambassadors,
Speaking of the stamp, first of all, Gloria and One Day at a Time have now just earned, for the third season in a row, the reframe stamp for gender balanced production. Additionally, we have just invited Gloria to join Reframe as an ambassador, and she has accepted. So welcome to the team. Thank you, Gloria.
and that was announced here on the panel.
So
So
excited.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So Gloria,
Yeah. What's up, guys?
there are often challenges being a woman, especially as a Latina, heading the charge for inclusion on TV. On the positive side, can you talk about some experiences with the fans of the show, of One Day at a Time, that have inspired you in the whirlwind from cancellation to being picked up by pop?
Well, the fans really are what got the show picked up. And I know Twitter can be a massive evil, but it can also be a magical place. And I've really found that our fan base is so generous and kind and wonderful people that are reaching out constantly. And I think it really speaks to the vast starvation of stories about women and people of color and non-binary and LGBTQ. And we treat that with great love on our show because that's how I feel about it and how my partner Mike feels about it. And to see that love returned from all of you has been very overwhelming and absolutely is what saved this show. So thank you.
And your show has gotten the reframe stamp 3 years in a row.
Well, I didn't mean to get it just makes sense. Well, first of all, I was in almost every room I was in. I was one of the only women and the only woman of color in 15 years on television shows. So it was insane to me when I first got into these rooms, and I'm like, wait, 50-year-old white guys are telling us these stories? Like, what? It seemed crazy to me. And then when you're in rooms again and again, and when you're the only, then you are then representative of all women and all people of color. They look to you like, well, what do you think about that? And you're like, this is crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, I just knew that I would always want I would always want gender parity, and I would always want the room to look more like my world looked. Mm-hmm. And so when it was time, when I finally got to be the boss, we just made those choices. And it was really exciting, actually, because agents get your phone number. I don't know how. They have sneaky ways of getting your phone number, and people hate it. I loved it because they'd call and be like, we heard you have needs. I'm like, I do. I am looking specifically for queer Indian women right now. That's what I'm reading. So can you send just those my way right now? That's what I'm reading. That's what I'm interested in. Silence. It's because the first batch that they send you are always white guys. There is a bias, and I don't want it to be a special ask to be at the table, and I don't think anyone should feel that way. And so I would always ask to read specifically women, people of color, non-binary, LGBTQ. That's just who I want to raise up and what I'm interested in hearing, and I've learned so much from having a very inclusive room. I don't like the word diversity. It feels weird to me because it's who we are, and it makes it sound like it's, it makes it sound like you're trying to do a thing that's the reality of the world. So I'm delighted that we got the reframe stamp, but we were just trying to, I was just the boss, and that's what I wanted to do.
So, and you have a next season.
Yes.
So, beyond the exciting news that one of the lead stars of the show is producing and directing an episode, What kind of surprises or what can you tell us about next season? And tell us a little bit about how she did wind up.
Directing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Justina Machado is a brilliant actress, has been doing this for a very, very long time. And every season we hold a slot for a new female writer or female director who hasn't had an opportunity to break in. And so she approached us, and we wanted to support her. All of our directors, save 2, are women or people of color. So that's been a very important part of the behind the scenes of our show. And because it's a show about a Latinx family and women, a very matriarchal family, it felt really imperative to have that female energy directing these very strong women. And legend Rita Moreno does not put up with with anybody who's not very, very strong. So I got to direct. We allowed Todd Grinnell to direct last year, and we're so excited for Justina to have the opportunity. We think she's really going to do an amazing job.
And what do you have? Do you have any little tidbits you can tell us about the coming
There's
season?
just going to be more. There's just going to be more. We will obviously still do. Our show is very Latinx and very queer and very. It's earnest. You know, it's earnest in a time when I think we need a little kindness. Our show's about people that love each other and don't always get each other, but are trying in this mortal coil to have fun and love and laugh and understand each other. And if that's what we're putting out into this world in this moment, we're very proud to do so.
And we're so glad you get to do it. We hope there are many more seasons, not
you.
the one coming up. Thank you so much. Catherine, so you just got back after 30 days and doing an overnight shoot. She's a trooper for Don't Look Deeper. Can you talk about how the new format influenced your filming style and a little bit about the show itself, what you can tell us, because there are lots of secrets about what it's about.
Yes, we just wrapped at 5:45 this morning. We did an all-nighter, so that was kind of fun. Then drove down here, and it's this Quibi. Have you guys heard about Quibi? Yes. It's like 10-minute episodes that you could watch on your phone, and you can watch them vertical or horizontal. And then I just did 15 10-minute episodes. And we did it in 30 days, starring Don Cheadle, yay, awesome, and Emily Mortimer, and all kinds of other interesting new people that you guys will love. And so it's set 15 minutes in the future, and it's just a new way of thinking, like how do you tell a story in 10 minutes, an episode that has almost like a cliffhanger at the end of each one, so it makes you watch the next one, and each day for 15 days, a new episode will come out. So it'll be like an app you can get on your phone. And it launches in April, so that's exciting. Jeffrey Katzenberg's company is doing it.
And it also it brought in so much money and enthusiasm and support from advertisers and from people who wanted to be part of it. So it's an exciting project in terms of that. So how, as a director, given the script, and then you know that you're doing it in this format, what kinds of conscious decisions did you make in terms of doing it for that size, that
Right.
10 minutes at a time?
Well, it was interesting. We first did a test where we shot it all in a horizontal format and a vertical format. And I actually want to ask you guys, when you watch something on your phone, which way do you guys watch? How many watch it in horizontal? Horizontal. Oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, how many watch it in vertical? More in vertical. That still could be awesome, too. Like, you'll be able to watch it and turn it either way as you're watching it. So that's kind of fun. But we had to think about how to compose, because mostly as filmmakers, we compose things in a horizontal format. So it was just a new way of thinking. And also, you usually talk to people like in a horizontal format. You're not like standing above the person's head talking to them. And so it was just kind of like fascinating. So we did those kind of tests. And then as we shot, we stayed conscious of that. But it was the same thing of creating a world where, as I used to be a production designer, like she said, so I love to create like a whole color palette, a feel, a mood in every scene. And, we just tried to bring you into this whole world that's 15 minutes in the future. So.
And you can't tell us anything beyond what they've already said, but it's a mother, a daughter, and a dad, and
Yeah, Don Cheadle, and then there's a really awesome newcomer named Helena Howard who plays his daughter. Has anyone heard of her? At Sundance Film Festival, she had a movie called Madeline's Madeline, and she's just kind of an amazing, very raw, like intuitive actress, beautiful actress. So, yeah, there's a lot of surprises in it. There are robots in it, too. Yeah.
so it's a good Comic-Con kind of a story.
Yeah, it's very cool. You guys will like it, I think.
And you're such an advocate for women in film, as we've said, you're a Reframe ambassador. I know that shows up a lot in your work, and sometimes on the back, sometimes in the front. How do you make that part of your work as a director?
Well, I think, just like what you said, it's just part of our lives. Of course, we want to I'm more interested in a movie about a woman. I'm more interested about, to just get into that character. And then, of course, in this case, we do always have to fight. Like most of the people that have been in the film industry for a long, long time are white, pale male, white men. And then they bring their brother into it. They bring their son, their cousin. So you just have these long legacies. All the grips are like white dudes and, everything, which is great. But, how do you change that landscape so that when you're on a set, you did it successfully, that you look out and don't just see a bunch of dudes. Like last night, in the middle of the night, we were doing a scene in a bathroom. I looked in the shower, and there were like 10 guys in the shower with me and the actress, and with all their equipment. And anyway, so how do you change it? And we want more women to get excited about being in the camera department, or in the lighting department, or in the sound department. I mean, these are cool jobs, you guys, and they pay well.
Really well.
Yeah, and they're fun, and you get to be part of the whole thing. So, like, if you like cinematography, and, that's a great profession, go to film school. Wouldn't that be a good thing to advocate? Who wants to be a cinematographer?
Raise your hand.
There you go.
Yay! Come on, get out there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool if you were our cinematographer? I'd love that. Yeah. So anyway, every day, like I thought this time I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to have a female stunt coordinator. And I said, I'm not hiring anybody that isn't a female stunt coordinator. I'm going to have a female composer. Those are very underserved areas. We got a female composer and a female stunt coordinator. So every day you're just like fighting. How can we change it? How can we break out of that box? And you have to look harder, because the other dudes will tell you, Catherine, this person has a lot more experience. I go, but how is this woman going to get experience if you don't give her the chance, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Take a chance on somebody that maybe doesn't have that super long resume, and Daddy didn't do that job either, So anyway.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Cheryl, how did you get involved in Queen Sugar in the first place, and how did you wind up as producing director in this season?
Hello. I can't believe I'm here. My gosh. You guys are amazing. And definitely you're amazing as well, trying to get me on this for so many years. I'm here because of you and Ava DuVernay. As you know, Ava DuVernay is an amazing producer, director, creative force. So let's just give it up to Ava's spirit right now. We call it the Ava effect that's happened. So again, there's a whole bunch of filmmakers. Very few are women, and very few are queer, and very few are queer women of color. And so I had been out there for years making work, unseen. My first film was called The Watermelon Woman. I don't know if anybody knows that. First African-American lesbian feature film. And through years, I worked with Effie Brown, who's in the room, did white people, but she also did my first feature for a studio called Stranger Inside. And you have to make 2 films that get recognition to be a member of the Academy for voting for Oscars. So I became a member of the Academy. I was like, oh my gosh, years. It took me years. It was like 3 years ago. So I went to some screenings. I live in the Bay Area, where I actually live in Wakanda, which is a state of mind, and everybody should where the plane landed, that's where, where the ship landed, that's where I live, in Oakland. And so I went to a screening on the other side of the bay in San Francisco, and it was for the 13th. And I've known Ava's work from the rounds and what she's done, Selma, everything like that. And so I'm in the room at the reception. I'm like, Ava. She's like, Cheryl. And I'm like, Ava, Cheryl. It was like a love fest. And I was like, so tell me about Queen Sugar. And she goes, do you want to direct?
We wanted you to direct.
And I was like, okay. She's like, 2 episodes. See ya. And I was like, what? Oh my God. And for years I've been sort of struggling, and not even struggling, I've been an educator. I've been teaching at San Francisco State University, UCSD, teaching film in and out of the academy. So I have a large, pool of people that I work with in the sense of students, trying to make change on that side of the lens, in the classrooms where you can be, where you can learn how to make films, how to write scripts, and really trying to get women in that way, people of color, queer people of color in that way. So I had to really let that go after I did my first 2 episodes of Queen Sugar 2 years ago, and this wealth of episodic just started. So I've been working for OWN, Oprah Winfrey. Actually, Oprah Winfrey paid for the show. Just kidding. I've been working for OWN, and I did Queen Sugar. Then I did another OWN show called Love Is, or I call it Love Was, because it's not around anymore.
Yep.
And a variety of other shows. So I was directing an episode of Dear White People, which drops on the 2nd of August, so you should definitely check that out. Very fun, very fun. Justin's amazing. It's lots of fun people in it. And Ava called, and when Ava calls, you stop. You go, excuse me, everybody, cut! You run and have a conversation with her. So she was like, what are you doing? What show are you going to next? All these questions. And she was like, okay, I need a producing director, which means a person who's going to stay for the whole season, 4th season of Queen Sugar. We've been thinking about you. We were trying to get you in last year. What's your availability? You need to tell me in 2 days. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So I had the weekend to think about it, and I said yes. So I really had to clean my slate out and head back to New Orleans for where we shoot the show. That started in February. And just rock worlds. Lots of first-time women directors come through. Ava only hires first-time women directors. Lots of them are color. One not of color, but amazing right here. Fitz was in our first season of directing episodic. And it's amazing because there's so many flavors and colors of people who come through as women directors from so many different backgrounds. There's young directors, there's old directors, some people are indie, some people are designers, people are from all over the planet, but some people have been struggling and have not been recognized for what they're doing. So I was there to help guide them through the process, help keep the show consistent, work like a dog, all day, night, on every episode, kind of put my funk in there. I directed 2 episodes of that, and I'm still, reeling in it. It airs on OWN every Wednesday. It's amazing. Some wonderful cast. We got I'm not even going to give anything away, but we have a lot of really cool guest stars. And right now I'm using that to work on my own stuff, and I'll talk about that later or now.
Well, mention quickly David Makes Man, which is coming out soon.
David Makes Man, definitely a new OWN show. It's a fantastic show. It drops on the 14th of August, and I can't even talk about how powerful that show is. It has again, a wonderful cast of African-American people dealing with the drama. It's set in the past a little bit, but it's actually really amazing. It deals with a little bit of Afrofuturism. If you know Terrell McCraney, who won the Oscar for writing of Moonlight, that's his first episodic show. So it's dealing with some really beautiful stories about African-American men, this time in Florida, trying to kind of come of age, and David Makes Man. So you really should watch that. That's amazing.
And then you also have something very cool called the Gilda Stories.
Yes. I don't know if you know, how many people in here like vampires? All right. How many people know about any black women queer vampires? All right.
Yeah.
Joel Gomez wrote this book called The Gilda Stories many years ago. She's a wonderful queer woman author, or lesbian author, as we were then and not are now. And she wrote this book that nobody really talked about. I mean, I'm not even going to go into vampires are really overlooked and stories about them. So when I read the Gilda stories, I was just like, this is amazing. Every chapter is a historical moment in sort of U.S. history, and it's a black woman who's bit during slavery and becomes Gilda, and she has to find a place to rest her head. And it spans from 1850 till 2020 already as a novel. And so every year I ran into Jewel. I was like, Jewel, give me that book. I'm working on the second one now. Jewel, give me that book. 5, 6, 7 years. Finally, I think after watching The Handmaid's Tale enough, she said, I get a call. I was like, Cheryl, I'm ready to give you the book. So I've just optioned that with my creative partner in San Francisco, Mark Schmalowitz, and we're at work with some people. I'm not going to talk about some amazing producers, but some amazing folks right now are interested in developing that to become an episodic. And and so I'm directing, right now I'm directing Lovecraft Country with, which is another amazing novel with monsters and queers and people of color. I'm not going to go into that. It's a Jordan Peele. I'm doing Sacred Lies 2. It's another online Facebook show. I don't know if anybody watched Sacred Lies 1. Damn.
Well, check it out.
Yeah, you should check it out. And just fun. It's a wonderful thing to do. And I'm also trying to really funk up the politic, as you said, when you look in the room and you're on the other side of the lens of a sort of romantic or a powerful scene. It's just a bunch of white dudes in shorts with beards and rock and roll T-shirts. We really need to funk that up. We really need to get people just not behind the camera or in front of the lens, but also grips and gaffers and, anybody in the sound department, anything to really make that diversified. I think that's, one of the bigger factors that really is kind of making it stall beyond, above the line, people who are, producers and whatnot. But if we could change the floor of what a production looks like, we can change anything. So thank you.
Thank you. So Fitz, how did your work in unscripted TV become part of your aesthetic as a director when you started working on Queen Sugar? What did you discover from your history in terms of what you've been doing that came into play on Queen Sugar?
Well, I think working on Queen Sugar, you are surrounded with a beautiful crew and a wonderful cast, but years of my producing and directing helped tap into where I got that spot to be a director on Queen Sugar. I think you pull from a lot of different elements to actually get there. It was a wonderful thing to have done a documentary and be in the Ava effect, to get that opportunity to work on Queen Sugar. I had done a lot in my past that had been recognized. I had gotten awards, but it was really Ava, as we all have to up here as creators, directors, producers, reach out and give women a chance, because it is a male-dominated field. And that's not just making TV, it's across the board, me coming from commercials, documentaries, the gatekeepers, and I think it's just really important to watch what Ava's done with Queen Sugar and really put a stamp on it and hire only female directors. And that was courageous, and she digs for those directors. They don't necessarily, I'm sure they come to her as well, but she really reaches through all ages, races, everything, to find those lucky 13 or lucky 11 if there's multiple directors doing more than one. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch and then to take back and do with my life now that through Queen Sugar I'll be hiring and doing more TV.
Is there anything you can say that you're working on that we?
Yeah, developing a TV series and a documentary, which I'm really excited about, and my next episodic TV, directing episodic TV. So my show airs August 14th, so I'm new to directing episodic. It is my debut, and just very excited about stepping into that role.
Thank you so much. Liesl, how did you make the transition from theater to film and TV? And what is your work in theater? How has that aided in the transition? In what way has your aesthetic been adapted to or grown by doing both?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for including me in this panel. It's
You know I love
wonderful.
you. Oh my God, I love your
Wonderful
work.
to be here and to see all of your beautiful faces. So, I'd been toiling on the theater plantation for many, many years. And I started off as an actor, and theater was always my passion. I studied Shakespeare, musicals, and I had directed all of them, from Les Mis to Hamlet to new plays to new musicals, because I always felt that as a woman and as a woman of color, people are very quick to try to put you in a box, and so I was going to defy any, narrow description of my work, and so I really made sure that I did all of it. And I had a show written by my friend Danai Gurira and starring my other friend Lupita Nyong'o that went to Broadway called Eclipsed, and it was about 5 women who were trying to survive the war in Liberia. And I'm originally from South Africa, so it was very close to me, that story. And it did very well, and we all got Tony nominations, and I really was like, I think I have something on my bucket list checked off. Something that I had done, got to Broadway, and people that I loved got nominated and won Tony Awards. And people's careers changed because of that project, and in fact, the landscape of what could be on Broadway changed because of that production, because that had never happened before. And it was after that I realized, and then I went on to direct this production of Frozen at Disneyland at the Hyperion, which was in development for like 2 years. And has someone back there seen it?
Probably.
But I felt, and that was a $30 million live, stage production with technology that never had been used on stage before, because I love technology, and I had the budget, and I was working with Imagineering engineers, and I kind of was like, I don't know what play I do after these 2 plays. I think I may have done it all. And I'd always wanted to do film and television, and that was the beginning of the shift, because I just felt like I wanted to do different kinds of stories, and I wanted to use different kinds of technology and reach a broader audience, frankly. So that was what the transition was. And the last couple of years I've been doing television, and I felt like I wanted to do the same thing I did in theater, which was, again, make sure that nobody in charge could decide for me what my work was. And that's why I did Walking Dead and Jessica Jones and Insecure and Queen Sugar, and a movie for Netflix recently for Dolly Parton. So I made sure that it was, broad-based, but also always passion projects, stories that I really cared about, writers that I believed in, actors that I felt, inspired by. That's really important to me. And now I'm kind of in the film phase, I would say, because I'm in pre-production for Respect, the Aretha Franklin biopic. And after that, I'll do...
With Jennifer Hudson.
Yes,
As
Jennifer Hudson.
Aretha, who was picked by Aretha Franklin to be.
She was picked by Aretha. She was, I think 10 years ago, Aretha started talking to her about, if there was ever a movie, you should play me. And Jennifer was kind of like, sure. That sounds great. And then it actually happened, so yeah.
And then I think some of you will appreciate that Night of the Living Dead is your favorite movie ever.
It is.
And
Zombies
because
forever.
I'm bringing that because you want to mention that you're working on something.
Yeah. The other film I'm working on is Born a Crime, based on the Trevor Noah book.
Yeah. Which has nothing to do with zombies, but she did want
That's
to bring
not
it
the
up.
zombie part of it.
That's not the zombie one.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that.
Yeah. With
Which
Lupita Nyong'o.
Lupita she'll play his mother. So we're in development on that with the script. We're doing that with Paramount. But I also do have a zombie film in development, which has a series of women who are at the center of the story. because I feel sometimes, I love the zombie genre, I love post-apocalyptic everything, but I often feel because these movies are primarily written and directed by men, that the male gaze is a very bleak one. You know, if you think about these movies, it's usually, the world has been destroyed, and there's a man at the head of the film who is then slowly imploding and will then ultimately destroy himself and the community again. So my thing is, like, if women are running things, or if we're focusing on a woman in the post-apocalyptic world, I think our focus would be trying to heal things, or to put it all together again, or to create a new world, because the other way just ended everything. Mm-hmm. And that logic seems to escape a lot of my male peers who are making these movies. So that was sort of like the focus of this batch of zombie work that I'm doing, and people seem to be relating to this idea. So.
And then you're also about to actually do The Outsiders as a musical.
Correct. The S.E. Hinton book, The Outsiders. Yeah. We'll do an out of town in Chicago next year, and then bring it to Broadway the following year. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen, talk a little bit about, so Rust Creek happened and it became a thing.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, it came out and it was just a tiny little indie, and then everybody watched it.
Teeny
Well, not
little-
everybody. You guys should all watch it. But
yeah, if you haven't watched it, please do. It's on iTunes and all the places. But it came out through IFC Midnight. It was a small sub-$1 million movie, and we trended as a top movie on iTunes for almost a month against multi-million-dollar films.
making those people mad.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just like, what? Clearly these are just my algorithms for me personally. And then I was getting, people were sending me stuff. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I'm really proud. Everybody worked really, it was an indie. Like, it was sticks and glue. We were peeing in the woods, and it was like 7 degrees. The batteries didn't work because it was too cold. So, every film, whether you like it or not, really is a miracle. But then when it hits, that's just a feeling of magic. It's to me, that's what magic is in our business. If you have an idea in here, you break it down, you bust your ass for years, and then one of you guys comes up to us at a theater and says the same thing, word for word, that we pitched some producer years ago. I have no idea how that happens, but it's fucking awesome. It's 18 only. I'm sorry. It's really awesome. And it happened with this one, and I hope it happens again very soon.
So you created Glass Elevator.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what it is.
Okay, so I created Glass Elevator 4 years ago. On the web, it's glasselevate.com. I created it to connect women professionals in the industry with one another so that we could elevate one another, because I was sick of hearing people say they didn't know where to find us. In 4 years, we're nearly 4,000 members. Every member is vetted. They are all professional. They're all working. It's everyone from Teamsters to executives, lawyers, writers, directors, PAs even. And it's all free. That was important to me because I don't think women should be charged for tools to change a shitty system. And in that time, thank you. In that time, the way it functions, it's basically I was kind of helping people meet one another, because when you're in Hollywood, your time becomes so valuable. There's a lot of gatekeepers to meeting new people, and there's this stranger danger that happens when you're responsible for millions of dollars. You want to make sure you're doing it right, so you tend to hire the people you already hired. So the site functions as kind of a mixer in that there's peer-to-peer classes, because everyone that's a member has a skill and a talent, or they know something that they can share with someone else. Social events, and there's jobs. And we just added the jobs 2 years ago, and in those 2 years, there's been 500 job postings. All of them industry, all of them paid, because I don't ask women to work for free, and nobody else should.
Yeah. And the idea also is that, studios, directors, whether indie or studio
That's right. It's union
can
and
go
non-union.
on there and find crew.
That's right. And I partnered with Level Forward, which is the production company that emerged from Killer Content and Abigail Disney, and they're kind of helping me develop the tech to take it to the next level. But yeah, that's what.
And talk just for a minute about your really cool new project, Angelica.
Okay, so I have a TV
It's her
series
baby.
yeah, it really is. A TV series I co-created with my partner, Eliza Lee, called Angelica. It's about a small town in America that has the last abortion clinic in the state, and how all the outside influences with conflicting agendas come and affect the women of that community. We're really excited that we have the producers Sean Reddick of Get Out and Black Klansman, and Yvette Yates Reddick of Impossible Dream, and we just got our paperwork this week for our financing. We're doing an international independent finance, so we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah. Which is wonderful. Congratulations. Angela, they just announced you'll be doing Lock Every Door like the second the book came out. So how did you get to work on the project? And can you talk a little bit more about it? Because it became a New York Times bestseller in a second. And it's this really, really cool book.
Yes, actually, my friend Brian Buckner, who we wrote together for many years on True Blood. So he was the EP of True Blood after Alan Ball, did his thing. And so we were old friends, and he brought me the galleys to this book called Lock Every Door, which is pretty freaking awesome. And the concept is basically there's a historic building like the Dakota. It's called the Bartholomew. It's in New York. Spooky old building that's been there since the 1800s. There's a character, Jules, who's a young woman who gets an apartment sitting job at the Bartholomew, and there's just 3 rules: no visitors, you have to stay overnight, and you can't spend a night not there, and you can't tell anybody who's in the building. That's just what I'm going to leave you with. But I read it, and I was like, whoa, I'm completely hooked, and we just, said, let's do it, and they basically, Paramount brought it to us, so I have an overall deal at Paramount that we just started this past January, which is exciting. So now we're, getting deep in it, but we were really excited because I've never done a project. You're always like chasing book rights and things and stuff when you work in this business, but you never get them. You never get the galleys before, but this time worked. So we were super excited when it was just released. I encourage you all to go check it out, but it became on the New York Times bestseller list right away.
And you're executive producing a movie called Passing.
Yes. I'm EPing a movie called Passing from the Larson novel, which is incredible. Directed by Rebecca Hall, who is incredible and a genius. And we worked together. She was the star of my last film, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. And she'd been... she just blows my mind because she's so incredible. And she had been kind of nurturing this project for many years. And so she's going, we putting it together, and Tessa Thompson and Ruth Nega are now attached to star in it, so shooting hopefully soon.
And you were telling me something about Rebecca Hall last night about why it's such a great fit for her.
I mean, this is amazing. I mean, Rebecca Hall is, she's just an incredible actor. Many people know her work. But her father was Sir Peter Hall, who was one of the founders of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company. And her mom is an incredible opera diva. But what nobody knows is that that she's half black. basically. So everybody's like, what? Rebecca Hall's half black? But yeah.
What?
So what? Do you know? So the American side of her family is in Detroit, and there was a history of, I mean, when you get into the nitty gritty of different people in her family at different times, kind of passing, but it was very close to her heart, and she's done an incredible job adapting the material. And so it's a really personal film. And I said, since we worked together, I was like, I will support you. I was just literally like, just tell me what to do, and I will help in any way I can. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's wonderful. Well, I would like to thank you guys for being part of the panel. You're part of the panel. And also, I had this running because all of these women are on social media, and they're all really interesting and post really interesting things. And so follow all of them. And if you're into Women Rocking Hollywood, you should follow and make sure that you come again next year. Tell the people of
Thank you,
Comic-Con
Leslie.
that we need a bigger room because there are always a bunch of
Thank you,
people
everybody,
jumping
for
in.
coming.
So thank you so much. And thank you to the panelists.